literally just got this set up this morning, so I'm not too sure how good it is at the minute.
Well, the important thing is that you're here
Yeah.
and that we can hear you, etc. Yeah. It's okay. My actual bodily hardware could do with a soft reset as well. And we have a stream. Nice. No F2 for Tom and Louis to watch whilst we're talking about other things today then.
No, that's the
football.
Wrong shape ball. Completely wrong shape ball. No. I'm just planning when I'm going to sleep like all of this afternoon.
I got the football now and then the NFL later, so it's all good.
NFL is still the wrong shape ball.
Same shape ball, just a bit smaller.
Is it the same shape? Are we live?
We are now. But, we haven't started yet. You are right. There is a difference to the ball.
Thank you.
One's a bit more square in terms of like the actual sides. If it's not pumped up properly.
Yeah.
It's just a bit smaller. If you probably put it at the same size, it would probably look very similar.
Oh yeah, to the untrained eye, they do look quite similar.
All right. Is everybody good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Changed the speech.
I was to say, still disembodied though.
Yeah, still disembodied.
I wonder if it comes through on the live stream.
I don't think so now. Right. After a crazy race weekend in Russia last time out, Formula One is heading to Istanbul Park, where the chance of even more rain could see another unpredictable event where both our championship contenders will need to be at their best. Welcome to the F1 Grid Talk podcast. Today we'll be previewing the 2021 Turkish Grand Prix. My name is Ruby Price, and joining me we have sports journalist Louis Edwards.
Hello.
Hello. Tom Downey from the Everything F1 podcast.
Hello.
Hello. And F1 expert Jack Watson.
Hiya.
Hiya, good to have you back, Jack. Firstly, if you enjoy this podcast, we would love it if you could take 5 to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'll shout out all of you who do to say thanks. And also, the first Grid Talk podcast store competition winners have been drawn. The winners receiving Grid Talk t-shirts are G. Shantu and Jesse Lund, and the winner of the Grid Talk mug is Errol Samuel. Please email us at media@f1chronicle.com so we can ship your prize. Every month, we're giving away even more Grid Talk merchandise. For example, competition 1, we each month to be in the running to win a Grid Talk Champion t-shirt. All you need to do is give us a 5-star review on iTunes or leave a comment on the YouTube replay with your favorite moment from the race. The second competition we've got running is to be in the running to win a Grid Talk mug. All you need is to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Winners of both competitions for the month of October will be announced during the Mexico Grand Preview. There we go. So, Louis, the big news in F1 this week was the addition of the Qatar Grand Prix to the 2021 calendar with the announcement of a 10-year deal starting in 2023. The race this season will take place at the Losail International Circuit, known for hosting the MotoGP. Do you have any thoughts on this? Like, it's been a bit of a mixed reaction to the event.
Yeah. As someone who is a fan of MotoGP, I'm quite familiar with the track. It was it's not one that is going to be completely brand new to me. But yeah, I think in the scope of Formula One, it is further showing the sort of the route that Formula One are going down with, where they're just going where the money is rather than where the interest is. Because how many times have we heard that the Italian Grand Prix or the Brazilian Grand Prix may be in jeopardy, but we go flying out to Saudi Arabia, or we go flying out to Qatar just because there's money there. How many times we could have gone to Vietnam, but I think we were very fortunate that we didn't, because that track was terrible. But yeah, it's not a good look, especially with F1's, we race as one motto, and something that they push, and they've tried to be outward at the start of every Grand Prix. But how is that going to look when they do this, we race as one message in Saudi Arabia later on this season, or Qatar later on this season? It's going to look weird. It's going to be strange. I'm surprised they'll be allowed to do it, but I'm sure F1 will make sure it does happen. But it's still not a good look.
Yeah, it does sort of detract from the meaning of the whole We Race as One campaign when, you are then deciding to race in a country that has, jailed journalists for doing journalism, or, for example, Qatar, where it's illegal for men to be gay, etc. So I did a bit of journalism earlier this week and contacted F1 Media for a statement on this, because obviously, it does sort of clash with their values. And their statement is, for decades, Formula One has worked hard to be a positive force everywhere it races, including economic, social, and cultural benefits. Sports like Formula One are uniquely positioned to cross borders and cultures, to bring countries and communities together, to share the passion and excitement of incredible competition and achievement. We take our responsibilities on rights very seriously and set high ethical standards for counterparties and those in our supply chain, which are enshrined in contracts, and we pay close attention to their adherence. Tom, I'm just going to go to you, for further comments on this. How do you feel about that statement? Do you think it, covers all the bases?
I think it's a fantastic exercise in box ticking by HR and the F1 sort of publicity departments. That is such a cut and shut response. I've seen more emotion for Kimi Räikkönen. There's nothing specific to what you said there, Ruby. You raised some really, really valid concerns about we race as one, which is obviously the mantra that F1 has gone with over the last sort of 2 years. And it does seem to make a mockery of what the slogan "We Race as One" is originally standing for. I have actually noticed this year that certainly last year, the slogan, I'm not going to say it again because I'm going to get in a tongue twist, but last year it was very sort of about gender equality and that sort of wider topic without going too much into it. Whereas this year, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the sort of pre-race sort of snippet or mini film, if you like, they're talking about sustainability and sort of environmental factors and all the rest of it. And they're not just talking about gender or race or sort of one specific thing. I don't want to get too much into it because we'll be here all day otherwise. But it seems like F1 almost sort of washing their hands with it, and this is why, and this is why they're sort of, they can also get away with it, because as F1 like to say, we are now global citizens of the world, and it's it's just it just seems a bit backwards, like you said, a country where people can get thrown in prison for being gay. In what world is that okay? And to host a global sporting event there, which is the pinnacle of single-seater motor, arguably the pinnacle of single-seater motor racing, when F1 has been on such a drive over the last sort of 2 years, no pun intended, to sort of like to sort of like clean up its image or sort of like get away from like the sort of like 70s image of like sort of like racer boys who are womanizing all the rest of it. It just seems completely backwards to me.
Yeah, there is that. Should we look at this race weekend though, Jack? Obviously there is a chance of rain, and that certainly spiced up last year's Turkish Grand Prix where Lewis Hamilton won his 7th World Championship. There is obviously, as I say, rain forecast, and there was the resurfaced track surface, I think it was last year, that also led to such sleepy conditions. Do you think having, there been another year since then that we could see a similar scenario, or do you think it was just more of the perfect storm last year?
Well, certainly the race organisers have taken steps to prevent it. They have recently, I think it's called water blasted the track. So the issue they had last year was where the track had been resurfaced so soon to the actual race taking place, the tarmac, when it's freshly laid down, seeps oils out onto the track surface. When that's added with water, obviously it doesn't mix, and it is, like you say, a perfect storm to eliminate any traction the tyres can get. They've since essentially jet washed the track, but to a much more aggressive degree to rough it up, essentially. So you've now got micro pockets that will sort of allow any surface water to sink down, and it should help. It sort of acts like the block of a tire in reverse. So the tire's now more likely it's got peaks essentially to dig into and get the rubber to bite into. So it should negate that ice rink that we had last year. Rain's always going to spice up an event. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed. I would have liked to see Turkey run in the dry in full anger, because we haven't seen that yet with these big cars now. But I mean, it should still provide very, very entertaining race. I mean, wet or dry, Turkey was always a good show. So I like to see that they've taken these steps, because while it got us talking, it wasn't a proper Grand Prix. Like the fact that it was impressive seeing them deal with it, like let your inters wear down to slicks, and that turned out to be like that super soft compound that the inter essentially is underneath was what they needed to keep temps up. But as a one-off talking point, good, but you wouldn't want it to continue. So it's nice to see measures being taken.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, seeing Lance Stroll put it on pole, that's the kind of things that, Turkey was remembered for, and, cars spinning more than Beyblades. But looking at the actual cars then and drivers for this weekend, Lewis Hamilton finally got that 100th victory last time out. And, with him only having a 2-point lead to his, main rival, Max Verstappen, he'll want to be, front and center in Turkey and taking win number 101.
Yeah, it's so close now. I think Lewis would have been he would have been really happy that he won the race, but the fact that Max came from the back of the grid to finish second, it just keeps his championship so close, and it just keeps it so much more interesting. This is a race track where, of course, Lewis did very well last year, but you mustn't forget that the Red Bulls were with a team to really should have put it on pole to begin with, and B, then also then should have won the race before having an absolute horror story. And I think Lewis and Mercedes in general will be hoping for more of the same from Red Bull. They're going to need some sort of horror story, because I would say that this track would probably favour the Red Bull just a little bit more than that Mercedes. But with Lewis Hamilton, nothing is concrete, nothing is an absolute, because even when Red Bull may look their strongest, Hamilton can always play a massive factor. And getting 100 wins is more than impressive. I don't think words can really describe just how much of an achievement that is, especially in Formula One. To try and break that and go 1-on-1, it's just every race from now is more history making than when he overtook Michael Schumacher, if anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom, Valtteri Bottas, we were talking about him being like a Sochi specialist last time out, but you wouldn't have thought that from watching his race, even though he managed to finish 5th last time. You know, a Mercedes just going to chuck in another engine at the back of his car between qualifying and the race, or you know, what are you expecting from him this weekend?
Well, this weekend, I'm hoping he doesn't have a repeat of last weekend when he spun 9 times in one race. As Jack mentioned, obviously, I don't think the track surface particularly helped last year. Bottas, God, I mean, he's just 100% just doing the team game or doing his own thing now, because we've got what, 7 races left of the season. And then he's off to Alfa Romeo on a multi-year deal. So I think he's sort of just like, he's just lapping at the points, you know, might get the odd podium here or there. I don't think we're going to see him get a win this year. I think if he's in good contention to get a win, and there's even a chance of a Hamilton win, they will flip him around 100% because of how close the championship is. Bottas, he'll probably top FP1 on Friday, come second FP2 on Friday. FP3, he'll be about 5th. Qualifying, he'll be 7th. The race, he'll drop to 11th and come back to finish 9th. That's probably how his weekend's going to go, and that's how the rest of his year is probably going to go, unfortunately. I mean, if we've just touched on from last weekend briefly, he lucked into that position really, because Mercedes just said you're coming in for tyres. They'd probably use it as a test run for Hamilton. And then he sort of just almost lucked into 5th really. Bottas is just doing his own thing. He's just chilling, taking the paycheck. He's got a multi-year deal sorted, so you know, just he's probably doing what anybody else would do in that position, to be honest.
Yeah, it certainly didn't look as though he was defending Lewis's race last time out in Russia when Max Verstappen just coasted up the inside of him. But
wow,
yeah,
he probably didn't want to scratch his company car, so
absolutely not. Jack, Max Verstappen currently 2 points behind his title rival, and one of the rare occasions this season where he has actually been behind in the championship. As Louis mentioned, you know, the Red Bulls were looking very strong last year in Turkey and arguably should have put it on pole and won the race. And, you know, they'll be looking to right the wrongs of last year, won't they, this weekend?
Absolutely, yeah. They're going to be fighting tooth and nail to get Max back ahead. As you say, Louis, you'd expect them to go well. Like we shouldn't have that unforeseen scenario we did last year to mess with it. So yeah, I reckon Max should be on it. Probably be my pick for it. For it to come race day, but yeah, they now will know. Like with so little left to go in this season, it's every point's going to count. Like they'll be counting fastest lap points that go missing at this point. So at this juncture. So yeah, they're going to have to be all over it, and going to have to, as Tom alluded to before, Mercedes are going to wring everything they can out of Bottas, constructors wise. So yeah, they're going to really need to sort of crank the pressure onto Perez a bit. But I mean, I think I speak for most of us here when I'd say that we probably back Perez further than we back Bottas currently. So yeah, you get the feeling they should be in a fairly good position this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Perez has, you know, been one of the drivers that has sort of been underperforming lately, but they do have him confirmed for next season. So there is at least that chopping block away from his head, which, you know, other previous Red Bull second drivers haven't had the luxury of. But Louis, McLaren, absolutely heartbreaking for Lando Norris last time out. But you know, it's one of those learning experiences that they've mentioned, you know, that are going to make them stronger. And, you know, it just sort of defied their 2 consecutive wins that they absolutely should have had.
Yeah. This is still too soon. It's amazing how McLaren can put Lando onto the slicks at the perfect time in qualifying, but then not take him off the slicks at the perfect time of the race. But you know, if it's wet again, you know, we've seen what the McLaren's pace is in the wet, and it is very competitive. That McLaren is a very competitive car in the wet. also in the dry as well, but more so in the wet because, of course, the cars become a little bit more equal and it's more down to driver talent. And if it is going to rain again, I would definitely have Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo up there once again, challenging, maybe not for pole, but definitely up there for another podium. And I think it would do wonders for Lando if he was able to get on the podium this weekend. It's something, after having a win sort of snatched so cruelly away from him, to get onto the podium or even just get like a top 5, I think would really sort of bring back his confidence. And, I think it's races like these, especially for young drivers, that really define them. We've seen how George Russell came from almost winning Bahrain, and he's coming to this season and he's been stellar and he's been on the podium. And for Lando, this is sort of the hardest sort of moment in his sort of short F1 career so far. And it's all about how he comes back from this. And I suspect he'll do well. He looks quite on it. Last year, it was a difficult race for all drivers, but he looked pretty solid. And I expect that he should do pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, just also touching on Daniel Ricciardo, Louis mentioned that the McLarens, if it does start to rain, could be, quite a key factor. And Daniel Ricciardo giving McLaren their first win since 2012. Obviously, he'll be full of confidence, and even finishing 4th last week in Russia. He's. Would you put him up for a good weekend this weekend?
Before the summer break, I'd have said no, but since we come back, and obviously, with the race non-race in Belgium, Danny Ric was still in a very good position. And then, obviously Monza, we all know what happened. If there's, if you had to like pick a handful of drivers who could really take advantage of a sort of like skew-if race, so to speak, you'd probably put Danny Ric in that group if he's performing. And as Jack said, that McLaren is, or might be Louis, sorry, that McLaren is a very, very good car this year. It is competitive, and it is the top of the midfield, sometimes nipping at the heels of Mercedes. We saw it in Russia. We saw just how quick it was down the straights, that Hamilton couldn't really catch Norris then. Obviously, Turkey doesn't have as big a straight as Russia, but Danny Ric, if he gets the weekend right, if he nails quali, could be on for a very, very good result this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jack, moving on to Ferrari, P4 in the championship, doing a lot better than they were, this time last season. And it was Turkey where they actually did manage to show up on the podium with a great drive from Charles Leclerc, who sadly just missed out at the very last second. But Sebastian Vettel even got, I think it's his last Ferrari podium. How do you rate Ferrari's chances, especially on the back of last weekend where, Carlos Sainz was on the podium?
Yeah, I think you might be right with that Vettel stat. That was pretty heartbreaking for Charles, but to business. If we're taking last race as a sort of guidance point, because we can't really use last season too much, the cars might be the same, but I don't think the track's got any reference points. You got to think that they'll be they'll be feeling pretty good. Sainz was on fire at Russia, and I don't really expect that to change anytime soon. It's nothing. I think they're bringing anything car-wise that should change that. And while Turkey is a lot more flowing, the characteristics that which should sort of bring that same issue of and struggling to follow each other, it's just more aerodynamically rather than in terms of the stop-start nature of Russia naturally extending a track out. You should still have that same issue of cars not being amazingly easy to follow. Of course, we like wet weather because that helps mitigate it. I see no reason as to why that form shouldn't continue. I'd expect pretty good things from Ferrari, whether it'll be Sainz or Charles. I wouldn't want to put my money on that one. because they are very evenly matched. We know how good Charles is. The science has been getting better. Russia was only one marker for that. So yeah, they're going to need to if they want to catch McLaren. They've been more consistent than McLaren in past races. But we've had the highs of the win, but then we've had the lows of like 7th or 8th a couple of races before, and I can't remember. But yeah, they're going to have to rely on that consistency to ultimately catch the papaya cars.
Yeah, it did make me laugh when Carlos's race engineer said, we're aiming for a P5 finish. And at the time, I think he was still in P2. So it was like, where are you expecting us to lose this pace from? But, you know, he managed to hold on for a P3. So can't complain, Carlos. Can't complain. Louis, the Alpines in P5, quite some distance behind, you know, those ahead of them. Comfortably, I would say, ahead of the AlphaTauri at least. But, you know, last weekend we saw Alonso go quicker off the track than on the track, and Ocon failing to score. But, you know, the less said about the last couple of laps in Russia for some teams, the better. How do you fancy their chances in Russia? Not Russia. Why do I keep saying Russia? In Turkey this weekend?
I don't know. You never really know what to expect from Alpine when you turn up to a race. They are very up and down. You know, you never know what Ocon's going to do. Ocon's been very up and down this season. If anything, the only sort of like better consistency really has been Fernando Alonso being able to sort of get those sort of lower end points positions, and that's what I'd really expect Alpine to be. I think Mercedes, Red Bull, they're in a class of their own. Then you have the McLaren and the Ferraris, they're in a class of their own. You know, that's 8 cars. If all 8 cars are in the top 10, it only leaves 2 point positions for the rest of the field to really, you know, take. And yeah, Alpine are in very strong competition. Like, they may be ahead of AlphaTauri in terms of points in the Constructors' Championship, but I would argue that a lot of races this season we've seen that AlphaTauri be faster than the Alpine, and the AlphaTauris have had, you know, horrid sort of runs of luck at times this season, which have probably favoured Alpine. But yeah, I would like sort of going back to my original point of I don't know where to put Alpine. They're very up and down. I think if the rain will maybe play a factor, it might help them. And I'm sure Fernando will, I don't know, cut turn 1 or something off the start. You know, he is amazing at starts, but he usually does it on the track rather than off the track. And it's hard going from someone who really likes Fernando Alonso. But yeah, I can only hope that he does well. And of course, I can only hope that Alpine do well. But I think it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, just sticking on Alonso, Tom, your other Tom counterpart, you know, from Tom, said that, you know, Alonso's antics made him basically just the same as Luc Degrassi, you know, because it was a dirty cheating move. Do you have anything else on this, or would you agree?
What with Alonso taking a shortcut through turn 1?
As in, like, you know, was it really the right thing to be doing?
It's not the right thing to do morally, but we all know F1 is lenient on turn 1 or lap 1, especially turn 1. Well, I know it's turn 2 in Russia, but it's turn 1, let's be fair, in Russia, because of obviously the nature of the start of a race and how a bunch of cars can get, if something happens, all the rest of it. So F1, for as long as I can remember, is king at finding loopholes. And if a team or a driver can find something that's a grey area, that's not specifically outlawed, they will do it. And this is a classic case of that. I understand why people get annoyed by it, because it's not right. But if I was Alonso, which I am not, and I will never be, because I can't grow a fabulous beard, I would 100% done that. Why not? You might get told to give the place back, but it's turn 1. It's very unlikely. It's like evil genius. I bet when Alonso was sitting that, he was sitting in his RP motion, like twiddling a mustache or something when he came up with it, because it's not really right to do. It's a grey area, and F1 has always had rules in the grey like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a directive ahead of Turkey about this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. So, Jack, let's look at the AlphaTauris then. Louis obviously touched on them already, like being, less fortunate, let's say, than the Alpines. But, Pierre Gasly's been nothing but consistent really this season. And Tsunoda has been also consistent, but in the complete opposite side of the grid. How do you rate their chances this weekend?
Unfortunately, I think there's kind of a reason why they're down there. I think they've sort of lost a little bit with this mild revision they went to this year. It didn't quite work for them. And whilst that blistering pace that we've seen in practice, it's never, ever really come back to them. So yeah, I don't really expect miracles from them. I think it'll very much be, as has been alluded to, the status quo will probably remain. Gasly is almost a guarantee for points. He does go well in poor weather, and he is very good at maximising a car in difficult conditions. So you'd sort of favour him in that sort of regard. Tsunoda, it's very obvious it's been a growing year for him. And yeah, you'd have imagined that. I think it's mainly shocking us more than anything that he hasn't been treated with the usual prejudice that most Red Bull juniors are treated with, which is why I think a lot of us give him a bit of a hard time, because it's just habits like you'd expect him to be replaced by now. So at least he hasn't been. I probably, Q1 exit maybe for Tsunoda. Gasly, Q2 maybe, but I reckon racecraft-wise, he'll probably bring his way back into the points. But yeah, I don't really see him pulling a miracle out this weekend. There's no real reason to suspect that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly something to think about, that, they could be anywhere, but most likely they'll be, either mid top 10 or low low race grid. Louis, the Aston Martins, both did not score last time out, despite, a P4 start for one driver, and I think it was a P4 start. No, got into P4 at the start. So, Vettel, as I've mentioned, obviously last time here got a podium, and Stroll was on pole last time out, but, as we've said, we can sort of disregard those because of track conditions.
Yeah, I'm sure Aston Martin will be sending a firm messages to both their drivers this year. Well, not this year, this weekend. Going, can we not hit each other? That would be I think that'd be an improvement on Russia.
I think you'll find they'll send the message to Vettel saying, "Don't hit my son."
Probably. I really stuck me with difficult teams, because Aston Martin are just the kings of fluctuating positions. They have been absolutely everywhere. But I mean, the only thing I've really got to go on is the fact that in the wet they don't look too bad. They did look pretty good. Vettel was incredibly unlucky not to get a better starting position, at least for his Aston Martin last weekend. And Lance Stroll did very well, and he held up very well. And I think just the chaos that ensued at the end of the race sort of meant that he didn't score any points, because I think he was fully deserving of points given his start and where where he was going in the race. This weekend, if it is wet, they do have a chance. Like any team do, they have a chance at some points. But if it's dry or doesn't rain or anything, I think they could be in serious trouble. I can't see them really getting into the top 10, especially in qualifying. I would see them more, sort of battling to get out of Q1 and then just sort of being very much sort of in their place in Q2. I think it's going to be quite a difficult race, and honestly, my expectations aren't very high for Aston Martin.
Yeah, that's certainly a way of considering it. Tom, Williams got another point scoring race last time out, but they also did get a DNF. But where do you expect? Do you expect this to continue? It's a surprising run, but do you expect it to continue, or do you expect it to, maybe bring them a little bit back down to reality in Turkey?
I do wonder if they'll sort of. I think come back down to reality is almost a bit sort of. I think it's almost a bit unfair to Williams because they have justifiably worked their way up to be not the worst team on the grid. That accolade goes to Haas, and I would still argue that Williams are better than Alfa Romeo, both in terms of, I'd say, driver lineup and car. This weekend, there's only so much we can take from Turkey from last year, and obviously last year was it was hammering down with rain and the issues with the track resurfacing, all the rest of it. Yeah, Russell might sort of sneak into Q3. He's done it enough times now this year, and the Williams might get a point. But if it's a relatively clean race, then maybe not. But I think the sort of rule of thumb for the rest of this year is if it's a crazy race, whether it's a new race winner or if it's rain in the last few laps or if there's no race at all, we can assume that Williams will get a point because it will be something which is not spoken about because there'll be so many other things overshadowing it.
Yeah, that is a very good point. They have been the kings of capitalizing on, other people's poor circumstance this season. And, that is certainly one of the strengths that Williams have had for several years. Just, they haven't really had the car to deal with it until very recently. Louis, I'm just going to go to you whilst we wait for Jack. The Alfa Romeos finally got another point scoring position last time out with Kimi Räikkönen after being away for 2 race weekends. I don't think it's going to be enough for them to, start challenging Williams for P8 in the Constructors' Championship, but they could certainly, if they do get some more points, just give themselves that daylight between, the unpopular team that, will be hoping to not finish on 0.
I mean, I'd say the gap already, it would be like the distance between Earth and the Sun, especially for Haas to make up that, just to make up, what is it, like 4, 5 points, 7 points.
7 points.
That is like a marathon. But I think for Alfa Romeo, I think, I completely agree with Tom. I would say that the Alfa Romeo, in terms of car and driver, is probably below the Williams at this point. They're a team that, kind of do well on sort of making up on the misfortunes of other cars. And if it is wet, as we've said, as I've said like a million times, it does make things a little bit more unpredictable. It means that they could be in with a real chance of getting some points, but the likelihood of that in a dry race, I think, is slim to nothing. We've sort of already discussed that this, track is not the easiest to follow. There's a lot of long corners, and it just wreaks havoc on the aerodynamics to really follow cars well. And I just really can't see there being sort of much opportunity, even if Alfa Romeo don't qualify well, which I don't think they will. There's not really going to be much opportunity for them to make up any positions unless there is something thrown into the race that makes things a little less predictable, and rain is probably going to be the only thing that is going to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, I'm going to come to you to discuss the last team on the grid, Haas. I think one of the advantages that they've got is that we don't expect anything from them, when it goes into a race weekend, because of how, awful, to use the only really applicable word to describe that car. So, would you expect to see something shocking from them this weekend other than just their race performance? Or, is it going to be, the story continues of just driving around at the back and hoping not to get lapped more than twice.
Well, no, you can't expect anything else, really. It's just the nature of things with a team that's been that hamstrung over this year. So all they can do for any hope of a good result is just focus on reliability. There is a reason they keep going around and doing laps at the back, because if enough people fall out, they get, well, yeah, it'll be a startling race if 10 cars fall out, but yeah, that's how you get points. It's still worth keep going. But as for what do you expect from them, well, you expect them to be last of the last running finishes anyway. Although by the same token, with no money and no real development budget, they'll be more likely to just call something early if there's a car fault, an engine fault, say. They're willing to cut it early just to save as much as they can to get through on minimal resources use. So yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen a Formula One team in this kind of a state. Really, you have to go back to the 90s or so, maybe HRT. Actually, to be fair, but yeah, that might be a bit close to Haas, maybe. But anyway, to see an F1 team run on this at this sort of a hamstrung level it's very unusual. But I mean, yeah, expectation wise for us and for them, make it to the end of the season. That's it. That's all you can hope for.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if they might, just go for the new Ferrari engine that obviously Ferrari have brought to the season. They're already at the back of the grid, so a grid penalty is not going to make much difference. But it would have to be quite the power upgrade in order to give them a chance of anything.
I mean, ironically, in a car like this, if Ferrari want to keep it out the way, it's a testing opportunity, because they're all they're going to do. Like, the aerodynamic balance is bad enough, and like the fact that it is not upgraded from last year. But also, if you ever wondered why cars are constantly changed, this is the reason. That's last year's car, and it's already 2 seconds a lap off the pace, as is the world of Formula One. They could get, just say, bung it in. It's not going to make a difference to them, apart from the inter-team battle. And Ferrari get free data in just how the engine's working and whatever changes they've made, working with the package as a whole. So yeah, I mean, they might, but I mean, it won't make a difference, unfortunately.
Yeah, a very good counterpoint there. So let's have a look at some predictions for this weekend. So first of all, I need a race winner. So Louis, what are you expecting?
I am going to go with Max Verstappen, race winner.
Max Verstappen, one of the two options.
Yes.
Yeah. Tom?
Either Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen.
You can't give me two options.
Everybody gets a choice. No, so I honestly don't know. Momentum with Hamilton. He did so well last year and he won last weekend.
Hamilton for Tom. Jack, are you going to go on Team Louis or Team Tom?
Neither, actually. I'm going to give you 2 in 1 and give you my bold prediction while I'm at it. And I'm going to say Sergio Perez.
Sergio Perez for the win and as your bold prediction as well. Wow. I'm going to actually go Team Tom with agreeing with Lewis. I think momentum has obviously played a big part in this season. And, Lewis does very much enjoy the circuit, which tends to help. He shows up and he's just on it, really.
I was really surprised that you chose Lewis Hamilton, Ruby.
What a shock!
I was so shocked. I was like, "Wow,
Louis, I was surprised you didn't."
When would I?
Yeah. Anyway, the rest of the podium. So Louis, your 2 and 3, please.
I'm gonna go. I don't know. Actually, I do, because it's going to be Lewis Hamilton second, and then I'm going to back my boy Lando Norris to finish off the podium.
You really shocked me there, Louis.
Yeah.
Putting Lando Norris on your podium. Tom, your number 2 and 3, please.
So if Hamilton does finish first, which I'm still not 100% sure of, I think Max will be practically able to sniff his gearbox. He'll be so close behind. And then third place, I'm going to go Danny Rick. He's since the summer break, he's been a lot better.
Interesting. If that rain does come, I think that could certainly play a part in that actually happening.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, it would be nice. Jack, we've already got your very bold Sergio Perez on the top step. What are you expecting for 2 and 3?
Well, we've already discussed that Red Bull have need the momentum, and we reckon it'll favour him. So I will go Max second and Lewis third. It's hard to argue with him not being on the podium. Let's be honest. Even I can't fight that. So yeah, Sergio, Max, Lewis.
See, what you're saying there is that Red Bull won't see Perez in front of Max Verstappen and think we should do the switcheroo.
Yeah,
I reckon there might be something that happens that makes it implausible.
like team orders.
I think it'd be more like Lewis, right on the back of Max, and if they were to swap, it would probably then jeopardize Perez's position as well. It'd be like Ferraris at Russia, when.
Doesn't let him get the gap. If Hamilton's already all over him, holding second is better than dropping to third. So
yeah, that is a very good point. And to be fair, they didn't actually do team orders to swap the cars around last race weekend either, which surprised me. But it's just a strategy, isn't it? I'm gonna go with similar to everyone else with Max following Lewis. And I am absolutely not putting Valtteri Bottas on the podium. I'm going to say it's going to be Charles Leclerc to bounce back from last weekend's P15 and to make up from last year's missed podium opportunity at the last stage. So we need a bold prediction from everyone other than Jack because he's already given us one, unless he fancies giving us another. But Louis, your bold prediction for this weekend, please.
I think my bold prediction that Mercedes don't ruin Bottas's weekend and just leave him to do the normal stuff they should normally be doing on a race weekend rather than put him at the back of the grid all the time.
Never mind bold, that's just not going to happen.
just leave him alone. Please, I beg you, Mercedes, just leave him alone.
I wonder if he'll be the second finish driver on the grid to say, just leave me alone, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Tom, your bold prediction, please.
I'm going to go really out there just because if it did happen, it would be hilarious. Mazepin into Q2 and out-qualify Schumacher.
Well, your bold prediction of Tsunoda making out of Q1 came true last time out. Now you've doomed us all.
I know.
Done.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, man. Jack, are you good with Perez being P1, your bold prediction?
I'm not tempting fate any more than I already have, thanks.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm going to go with a bold prediction of fastest lap from outside the top 10. Because if Perez is hanging around in the lower parts of, the top 10 and Hamilton's got the fastest lap, Red Bull need to take it off him. Even if it is, just going to no one, it's better than it going to Lewis from their perspective. Yeah. So that is the show. So I need to give an opportunity to promote an opportunity for you guys to promote yourself. So Louis, give us a bit of a pitch about yourself and the things that you write for, etc.
Well, I do the majority of my writing on sportlightpro.com, run by the fabulous George Howson. And I will actually be doing session reports for this weekend's Grand Prix. So yeah, look out for them.
Yeah, do keep an eye out for them. And also a happy birthday, George, we should mention as well.
Yes.
And Mikhail, both involved in F1 Grid Talk. Tom, the Everything F1 podcast. Give us a spin.
Yeah, so Everything F1, we talk about unsurprisingly, everything to do with F1 and other motorsports as well. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook with @JoinEF1. Our Facebook page is the Everything F1 Paddock. We have our podcast, the Everything F1 podcast, where we have some brilliant guests on. We have a website, everythingf1.com, which I'm going to be giving a facelift sooner or later. And also we have a YouTube channel, which we have recently started growing.
Nice. Definitely go and check that out. And Jack, would you like to promote yourself as well whilst you're on air?
Yeah, I also do a bit of writing via Sportlight, much like Louis. You'll normally find me doing things on historical / technical pieces. I've been a bit quiet recently thanks to moving house, but I'm aiming to get back on track with finishing off my most influencing pieces of technical change. I can't get this out at the minute, can I? The biggest tech changes that have come to Formula One across the years. So I've done engines, aero, that sort of thing. I plan to finish it up with chassis and then some of the weird stuff that may or may not have worked, but it got racing. So yeah, be sure to keep an eye on Spotlight for that.
Yeah, I'll certainly be keeping an eye out for that. Maybe you could cover like things like the F ducts leading to DRS and all of that, but I'm not the technical expert. That's why we've got you. And if people want to follow me on any of the platforms, it's @Rubes, RUUBEZ. I am on YouTube as well, just making vlogs when I get around to it, and just other little short fun videos and stuff. So yeah. Grid Talk is available on Amazon as well as YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Verbal, Omni Studio, and Pocket Casts. Just search F1 Grid Talk. There is a huge back catalogue of shows with previews and reactions to qualifying and the race results. We are on Reddit. Search for the subreddit F1 Grid Talk, and we also have a Patreon for mics, lights, and better recording equipment. You can get your hands on some official Grid Talk merchandise on f1chronicle.com/store. And don't forget about our 2 competitions. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube and leave a comment on the replay and leave a review on iTunes. Get some merch for free, potentially, like our 3 competition winners. So make sure you subscribe so you're the first to know when each episode is released. We'll be back at the weekend to review the results from the Turkish Grand Prix. Thank you very much for joining me, guys.
No worries.
Anytime.
Yep, and stick around on YouTube, and yeah, goodbye. I'm so tired. My brain isn't working properly.
Yeah, sorry, my nose just started bleeding about 2 minutes into that. So
yeah, good on you for battling through it.
so that's probably why I was talking shit half the time. But
F1 Grid Talk's favorite fan, Connor Walker. Fun
Connor
fact:
Walker.
7 years ago, Max made his debut in FP1 in Japan 2014.
Bloody hellfire!
I mean, he already makes me feel old, but
He's only 23 years old.
Yeah, I was about to say he's only 23.
Oh, did he turn 24 the other day?
No, he's still no, because he would have been 6
recently though. But I don't know.
I can't remember. I thought it was his birthday the other day, but I might have been imagining something.
We've also got.
No, it was.
Sorry.
He's 24.
Yeah.
24.
It's like Google was listening to me because it was the first thing that came up when I just typed in Max. It came Max Verstappen age.
They're always listening, Louis. They're always listening. But yeah, we've also got a question from Connor. If it starts to come down to the wire, will Merck and Red Bull prioritize the World Drivers' Championship or the Constructors?
Oh.
Well, teams will always prioritise the constructors first.
Yeah.
But it's whether the lead drivers will play ball with that.
Yeah, but personally, I think Mercedes are probably going to win the constructors. I think the drivers is more open to. I think it will come to a point where Red Bull will probably realise, okay, the constructors are gone, but we can't let Mercedes win both, and they'll just focus on the drivers. I think it will eventually come down to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that does historically ring true as well for the Mercedes. Obviously, they didn't let their 2 drivers fight each other properly until the Drivers' Championship had been sealed. But obviously now one of their drivers is significantly further behind than the other one in the championship.
They've got a clear number 1 and number 2 driver. So, even if they, yeah, to be fair, yeah, it's like even if Mercedes want to say, "Oh, Bottas isn't," you're thinking to go, "Oh, Bottas is still a main driver." Yeah, no, piss off, mate. He's a number 2 driver.
Red Bull, it's not even number 1 and number 2, is it? It's
Max
and the other one.
Bitch. Yeah. Yeah. A Red Bull is Max and the second Red Bull seat.
It's not even a tier. Like, you can't even.
No, it's just.
I wonder if Christian Horner, Helmut Marko even knows the names of the other drivers.
Hey, you. Yeah, you're gone.
He's probably just got them down by like employee numbers or something.
Serial numbers on the back of their on the back of the helmets.
Yeah, it'll be like Hitman just with like a number on his neck or something.
No, that's what they put them on the cars for, to stop Helmut Marko from doing it. It's like, helmet, it's not necessary. We have these like stickers that they go on the car.
But he's a batty boy, isn't he? Bloody hell.
Yeah. There's not really much else, to talk about other than,
No, I'm currently looking at flights anyway because I'm going abroad. So yeah. I am off. I tell you what, I'm going to be going. I'm going to be going past Monza Circuit actually, because I'm going to tune in for work. So I'm going to swing by Monza on my way.
See if there's still marks in the gravel from where the two cars hit each other.
I
might just go in the gravel and just write #bless on my finger.
When I was at Silverstone for the MotoGP, I went. We sat at Cops for the races, and I was just sat there, just going, "I wonder if I could still see Max's skid marks from a crash." No, you can't. They've gone.
Oh,
to be fair, there's been more time between those.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to shoot. Sorry, guys. Sorry to cut you short. Have a good day, and I'll see you all later.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Cheers, Jack. Nice to meet you, mate.
Yeah. We've had a comment from RazorWolf01, and I can't tell if it's a joke or not, but they say, I honestly believe Mazepin is a future world champion.
No, that's a joke.
Chatting utter shit.
Yeah.
I feel like even if he got put into the Mercedes works team of the 2015 to 2017 era,
Yeah.
He was a test driver for them.
I know
for
he was
a little
test
while.
Driver. Yeah.
That scares me. The fact that Mercedes were willing to let him drive their cars.
Yeah, but they also knew that Daddy Mazzy could just pay whatever damage was caused. So
yeah.
Yeah, no. The only way Mazepin would be world champion would be by literally ramming every other driver into the wall.
Yeah, no, but surely then along come penalties and stuff. He'd get a race ban and then would actually get some points.
You see, he would just rock up to the circuit, Daddy Mazzy on one side, our boy Vladdy Poots on the other side. Just
in the sewage room, with guns to everyone's head.
And then Mazepin will just sit down with just a big fuck off briefcase, open it like in the movies. See Bernie Ecclestone's little beacon eyes just coming through, seeing all the money, and it'll be sorted.
They followed it up with another comment of at go-karting.
Oh. No, even then, no.
No. There's better go-karters out there.
Yeah.
Lando Norris has launched a go-kart.
I saw that over in... Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a team, it's just a model, isn't it?
Because he was saying that the kart that he won it in was actually a Fernando Alonso kart. It was an FA racing kart because Fernando's had his own. Well, it's like he has a karting school, and then he also sponsors a lot of young Spanish drivers in karting through his. It's like, I don't know if it's like a foundation or something. But yeah, Lando Norris used to drive one of his cars.
Yeah. Well, there's that. Is it the Fernando Alonso Museum in Oviedo where he's from?
Yeah.
I'd love to go there.
I've seen so many pictures of that. It's got all of his cars in, all of the
like race suits and helmets and
because
Yeah.
Fernando does a lot of race, a helmet swapping, and every single one that he's got from another driver is on display in this museum, along with every single car he's ever driven, because it's written in his contract.
That he gets one.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant thing to do.
Imagine
I
having
mean,
that.
would he really want to keep some of those? Like, you know,
Yeah, like,
He's got all the McLarens. Like,
I was going to say, what like that 2015 McLaren or the 2017 McLaren, which are both awful.
the 2017 one just looked bad as well.
Yeah,
so
everything
Like the
about it
2015
was
one actually
shit.
looks really cool. Like, and in my
I
opinion,
really
both
like that
versions
black
of it.
livery. Yeah,
Yeah, I just like chrome McLarens. So
the Vodafone era of McLaren is just
yeah.
is unrivaled. I mean, I do really like the Papaya in the way it is
Yeah.
now, but
it took
that
some
is-
development to get to the good McLaren
Oh,
livery
God.
again, but you know,
Yeah, I'm just-
so it's those cars. It's just they're so iconic, and they're so nice.
yeah.
But still, hands down, my favorite ever looking Formula One car is Fernando Alonso's 2006
Renault.
World Championship. The blue and the yellow.
I know.
It's unrivaled for me.
Yeah, and I remember watching an episode of Top Gear. I think it was about 2004, when Hammond was the whole point. He was going to max out the Renault V10 F1 car, and I remember at the time Samsung iMode was a thing on the mobile because I was in 2004. I was 9 or 10. I was 9 going on 10. And I remember seeing the iMode because I was just getting into like phones and all the rest of it. I remember seeing it and I remember paying attention. I remember the noise and the color and everything. Is that particular Renault V10, that sort of era of car, that's really stuck in my head.
It was
Yeah,
for
just-
I
me.
mean, you've still got tinnitus from hearing it on the TV.
Yeah,
For me, it was
I got
my
tinnitus
first
from Rush
seasons.
Banding.
Yeah, it was my first seasons watching Formula One back in 05, 06, and hence why I'm a Fernando Alonso fan, because he won the championship. I was like, I'm going to support Fernando. It also, just to sort of clear things up, it's also the reason why I'm not the biggest fan of Lewis Hamilton, is because, of course, he was Fernando's teammate in 2007. So I was all out. I was like, come on, Fernando, I want you to win. And then every time, stuff happened between Lewis and Fernando, I was always like the biggest Alonso fanboy.
Just the pre-social media version of like the Max Lewis, You can't go anywhere on social media these days without seeing it popping up.
No, and it's I do think this sort of like title fight is heightened somewhat because of social media. It's like I'm sure we mentioned it before, but if you'd have sort of thought about back in like, well, because I've had a complete brain fart. Who was Prost fighting for the World Championship?
Senna.
Thank you. Obviously, it's like you could see me processing. Then I'm very tired. It's like imagine if there'd have been social media out when Senna and Prost were going at it. Imagine if there would have been Twitter when they clashed at Suzuka.
Yeah.
Well, both
like-
times.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when Senna blatantly did it on purpose.
So good. Like, obviously I wasn't alive for that, but the fact is that when I first like found out about like the clashes between sort of Prost and Senna, I was like, the shithousery just to know that you're going to
It was
win the world
next level.
championship if you take him out of turn one. And
Yeah.
then just to do it, it's just like,
Oh God! Or imagine if just would have been around for Damon Hill and Schumacher.
any of that stuff. I mean, to be honest, like when I know the clash between Senna and Prost the first time when they were both at McLaren at Suzuka, that would have caused a lot to begin with. But then the fact that the FIA then disqualified Senna for taking the only route back onto the circuit, saying it was unsafe, that would have just been outrage. That would have been just so good.
Yeah.
But to be honest, like back in those days, especially with the way that the points were scored, I remember Senna won one of his championships purely on because they only counted like your best like 10 races. and that would go towards your point tally. And like the fact that I think Prost had won like so many more races, like 2 or 3 more races than Senna in the season. And if you put all the points together, he would have won comfortably. But because he had to lose a couple, like a rate, like quite major point scoring, and Senna just won by like a point purely on the fact that he had 10 good races that were better than Prost's 10 good races, even though Prost had easily won the seat, would have won under normal circumstances. So
I didn't know that was a former point scoring thing.
Oh yeah, it's terrible, but it was a thing. They would only count.
I mean, I guess it rewards consistency, but then so does getting points for finishing.
No, yeah, it's weird. So let's say they had like 16 races in a season. They'd count your best 12 results. So let's say you had like a couple of DNFs that would have probably cost you the championship. Those are completely thrown away, and you just get your best results. So calculating championships must have been such a pain, especially because it all would have just come down to like the last few races. You would only be able to then decide who is actually going to win a season.
Yeah. And that was back when reliability was shit.
Yeah, that's a point, because that's something that we don't see anymore. It's just like cars blowing up left, right, for good measure. We see the odd bit of reliability here and there where something may fail.
You never see
you
like a
mean
big
McLaren
plume of
2015 to 2017?
Yeah, aside from that, yeah. But it's like we saw. I think the last time I can think of quite bad reliability to hit a team was Red Bull in 2018, when the last year the Renault
Daniel.
Yeah. Oh, because he had no luck at all that year.
That was actually really sad, because also I remember which race was it Max Verstappen had? I think it might have been in 2017 in the US. He had an engine failure on the third lap, and they voted him driver of the day.
Oh,
yeah, I've noticed F1 seems to have stopped giving driver of the day to people that either don't get a decent amount of race or if it's just giving it to Mazepin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Formula Dank on Reddit always try and get Kimi Raikkonen driver of the day. Their goal is to get Kimi Raikkonen as driver of the day. It's
I wonder if he'll get it in Abu Dhabi in the last race of the season, if the championship isn't sorted by then.
I mean, you'd hope it's sorted by then, because that's the last race of the season.
Come on. I'm tired. Give me a break. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a comment the other day that was do you think that if they're tied at the end of the season, they'll go to count back or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, that is what they do.
Yeah. And it would be...
Which would also, I think, mean that Max Verstappen would probably get it.
Max had more wins so far.
Yeah. I find it mad as well that Hamilton's only had 3 pole positions this year.
Yeah.
I can't think... Lewis must have had quite a few fastest laps this year.
F1 put up a graphic earlier, actually. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah. It's certainly been a lot the DNFs of Max is what allowed Mercedes to catch up in both championship things. Well, just the DNFs of the Red Bulls in general. But, I think if you take them out, this championship would be done and dusted.
Yeah. Actually, they are tied on fastest laps.
Are they tied?
Yeah, so Hamilton had fastest lap in Imola. Max had it in Spain. Max had it in Baku, but doesn't get the point.
I remember that being my bold prediction.
Max had it in France. Hamilton had it in the first round in Austria. Max had it in the second round in Austria. And Hamilton had it in Zandvoort. Because obviously Bottas was being a cheeky chappy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Was the fastest lap in that race. Oh, God, yeah.
Valtteri, please slow down.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, just I tell you the thing that I keep playing in my head is you know the footage of when Hamilton finishes P1 in Russia. Then he sees Max pull up in P2. The only thing I can
That
think of
meme was great.
That is one of the best memes.
Yeah, but it's like the sound like he played in my head. It's like there's that voice clip as I'm going, "Hello, motherfucker," and I just picture that as Max pulls up or something, because it's just like you just don't expect to see him. Hamilton didn't expect to see him there.
Yeah.
And
That's so good.
that could be. We said it a few points this season, but that could really be like quite a big swing in the championship.
I mean, realistically, do you see what it would have to be a 26-point lead that any driver is going to have before Abu Dhabi?
No, unless we have another DNF.
And then that other team to actually capitalize on it, as opposed to potentially throwing it away.
I mean, Max was leading by like 30 points going into Silverstone, wasn't it, or something? He was quite significant.
Yeah, there was a massive lead. That's why it's surprising that I think it's only just now that Max has actually gone back behind in the championship again.
Yeah.
Or have I just not really been paying attention to?
But Lewis just keeps. Well, I mean, he got
absolutely.
the DNF in. I mean, Monza, they were both out.
Yeah.
But and Max had also got. But he got the 3 points from the. But he got the 2 points from the sprint.
Yeah.
It did. It does sort of. It's weird how this sort of the flux of this season's gone, because more often not, when Lewis has won, something has happened to Max, and then when Max wins, it is usually in Lewis in second, and that's why when he's won more races, but Lewis is still ahead because there's always a bigger deficit. Yeah, he's always been right behind. Well, when Lewis has won, Max is always, but last race, of course, he's always been a bit further behind, therefore allowing the advantage to shrink right down.
Yeah, I mean, he was 50 seconds behind, but that's because of the
race. Yeah,
they don't care about your time difference if you're still getting the same amount of points.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to look at the Austria races. There was no point in anyone else competing in those, and Max ran away with it by like 50 seconds in both races. It's like it was nothing.
Yeah.
But sorry, I'm leaning forward a bit just to move that out of the way. Hamilton is probably going to have to take an engine penalty though at some point, isn't he? And he's not going to take it in the last race of the season.
I don't know where you'd take it.
I don't know where you would take it at this point, because there's just not that many
No.
What
I would
else have we
say
got left to do this
Cota.
season?
If Cota goes ahead, I would take it there because Mercedes are very good at Cota, and it has the long enough straight to be able to overtake. And I think it would be, for me, that would be the only, or Mexico, because Mexico you can overtake as well.
And Mexico's pretty much a Max,
So
dominant ground.
Yes, again, provided he goes ahead. But we're a month away from it. 6 weeks away from my birthday. But provided they go ahead, I would say probably Mexico, because then they'll look to do what Red Bull did in Russia, because obviously Russia is such a strong Red Bull track, and Mexico is such a strong. Russia is such a strong Merc track. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't function today. Plus, then, provided Brazil goes ahead, that'll give Hamilton a relatively fresh engine for
Brazil could be a good race, If that goes ahead, Max and Lewis around Brazil, that could genuinely be an amazing race.
Plus, there are rumours that Brazil is going to be the other sprint.
Yes.
That makes sense. I mean, I hope they do it in Brazil, because if they do it in any of the final 3 rounds, chances are I'll miss it.
Yeah.
You're not going to watch the final 3 rounds?
I mean, I'm definitely not watching
Qatar.
I'm definitely not watching Qatar or Saudi Arabia in any capacity. I'm not going to ignore the results because I'll need to look at them, but
you're not going to watch any of the event?
No,
that's completely fair.
Or comment on it whilst it's happening either.
Yeah. Shit. Qatar. Let me check my dates.
The 19th to the 21st.
Yeah. Oh, don't tell me that's the weekend I'm going away. Oh, I should. If that is the weekend that I'm away, I might hopefully be in Turin for qualifying. That'd be nice.
Yeah, Davide Valsecchi on the commentary. I'm jealous.
No,
I miss him from F2.
Oh God, I love his passion.
I love Davide. He's so good.
Yeah,
Back like when I was watching the F2 season when it was Charles Leclerc's title. What is he? That was.
I remember that.
I feel like that was like peak F2 for me.
Yeah. Do you know? I just can't. I'm all for change and like trying different things, all the rest of it. But this F2 format this weekend, not this year, with the 2 feature races, it's a bit too much.
It really does drag it, and it does become a bit stale.
Yeah, and it's like I was either listening to a podcast or reading something earlier, or maybe yesterday. I was consuming some F2 related media, should we say? That's as ambiguous as I'm going to get. And it was saying that the race format for this year, or it's not helped drivers for both F2 and F1 next year. I was watching a YouTube video, actually, that's what it was. And it was saying that because F2 is usually so far further into the season by now, when it's sort of fairly clear, like who's going to, where people are going to finish, or sort of, finish with the top 3 and all that. F2 is still so wide open at the minute that teams, both F2 and F1 teams, can't make a call on taking one of those drivers because they might not even get the super license points. And it's not helping anyone really.
I mean, the only team that actually needs to decide on taking a driver potentially for next season is
Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, but then they've got to maybe look at someone like Oscar Piastri and see if he's...
Or Teo Pourchaire.
Exactly. Teo Pourchaire is such a good driver. I don't think he should... I'm not a big fan of going F3, F2, F1.
F1. No.
I would say Pourchaire would need another season.
Oh, 100%.
And if, to be honest, he sticks around next season, he's winning it. I think that's quite obvious.
Yeah.
Maybe even like Liam Lawson as well. Maybe you need to do another year because, of course, there's not going to be a Red Bull seat available for him next season, or probably the season after, unless Gasly decides to jump ship from AlphaTauri.
That would be like finally,
If Gasly doesn't move from AlphaTauri next year, he's going to get really stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
Also, Tsunoda.
Do you remember when Toro Rosso AlphaTauri used to just keep like a driver for 2 seasons and then they'd be gone?
Yeah. Like Sebastian Bourdais.
Yeah, or Jaime Alguersuari.
Yeah.
Sainz. Max Verstappen.
Yeah. But I mean, Sainz just flourished since leaving the Red Bull Academy. And I think Gasly should really take some sort of comfort from that, because, I know that, Sainz's results on paper might not look like, oh my God, he's gone on to be like the second coming or whatever. But, he did really well at Renault. He went there to partner Julian Palmer, which is like your dad saying, right now, don't beat your little brother. That's what it was like. And Sainz just slapped him about. Then, who was he with in 2018? Was it? No, it wasn't
Hulkenberg.
Hulkenberg, of course it was. Thank you. And Sainz arguably beat Hulkenberg then. Then obviously had 2 really good seasons at McLaren. Got McLaren's first podium in Brazil in 2019. And now I think Sainz is, honestly, out of all the drivers who have moved teams this year, I think Sainz is doing the best.
Yeah, I think if you exclude McLaren from the thing, Carlos Sainz could potentially be like a driver of the season.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, 100%. I think
McLaren.
Yeah, and I think if you exclude whoever's going to win the championship, like sort of outside of that and Norris, Sainz is comfortably in my season on the driver of the season so far. Yeah, he's. I really rate him as well, and I rate the way that he just goes about stuff. He just gets it done.
But he's also got the passion for it, as opposed to like a driver that will just, show up, do
Do
some
it.
laps on a circuit for a hobby, and then
And bugger
not
off.
actually care about it in like the interviews and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
someone said to Kimmy, "Hey, you've got your best result of the season." He was like, "I'd rather be higher up." And it's like, why do you choose to go there then?
Yeah. I'm sure we said it before. I think Kimmy should
Kimmy
have
gone.
Yeah, he should have gone after that last season with Ferrari. He got a win. He should have just taken that win and just, he's made absolute millions out of F1. He should have just gone back to Iceland. No, not Iceland, Finland. So that sounds like I'm saying one of those horrible phrases. He should have just retired with his young family and just been just been happy.
Yeah, go back to rallying or something.
Yeah.
If he wants to do something, just go back to rallying.
And just avoid, hefty collisions again, or crashes, or whatever it was that he had in rally.
Everything, basically, in rally was Kimi Raikkonen. No wonder he just rushed back to Formula One after realizing it just wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh God! Imagine if we saw Kimi do a sort of, like do a Schumacher or whatever. It's like the 2 seasons he comes back. No.
We already
no.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, supposedly he already went and came back, but Schumacher. Yeah, but he did that so much earlier in his career because obviously Schumacher did 14 years in F1.
Yeah.
Not.
Or you could say an Alonso.
Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah.
The fact is, though, like when Michael came back, he'd never really, looked the same driver.
Yeah, he was.
Kimi actually got some success. I guess you could say that Michael's success was, building the Mercedes team up to what it is now. But yeah,
he was being comfortably beaten by Nico Rosberg though most weekends.
Yeah, but he was also there to really develop the car and sort of he set in place like a lot of the foundations that Hamilton came into and that Hamilton has continued to develop and sort of like grow and everything. I'm not taking anything away from Schumacher, and I'm not saying that Hamilton is just waltzed into a team because Hamilton does a hell of a lot of work with the team and he's been there. Has he been with Mercedes now, if we count in next year? Has he been there longer than he was with McLaren?
I mean, he started
technically,
in F1 in 2007 in McLaren and left in the end of 2012.
2012, yeah.
But then also he was with McLaren before he joined.
Yeah, he was a junior driver.
He was a junior driver for quite some time because was it karting?
Yeah,
he got signed up.
Yeah,
because there's the old story that he went up to Ron Dennis and said, "One day I'm going to drive for your team."
Yeah. Well, George Russell just rocked up with a PowerPoint presentation to Toto Wolff saying, "Here's what you should sign me for your team."
Oh God, yeah.
He emailed it to Michael Massey first.
The fact that George Russell has got so far in his F1 career purely through his PowerPoint presentation skills, because that's how he got his Mercedes young driver sort of gig, and also it's how he got the Williams drive as well.
Yeah, I mean, when he was getting out in qualifying so early, he had plenty of spare time to do it. So, yeah. And on that note, I think we should call that for the post show. So, thanks to anyone that stuck around. Thanks, Connor, for your question. And thank you too for some good conversational points to keep us going.